You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that's exactly what happened to The Boys. Season 5, the final season of the American satirical superhero television show The Boys, has finally aired, and we are here to air our grievances about it. It was a long time coming. We were waiting with bated breath to see how they would resolve this very long and complex story with multiple moving parts, and I think a very apt way to sum it up is they fucked it up. What did you think, Tyler?
Yeah, I think that's so fair. It's I made you watch Invincible, right?
Yeah.
I pestered you for a long time to watch Invincible. It's Amazon's other flagship show. We finally got round to it, and we did a review on the channel. And shortly after that, you were like, "Hey, we have to talk about The Boys. It's coming to an end. I feel like it's worthwhile talking about." And I feel like that was my punishment for making you watch 3 seasons of Invincible in very quick succession.
Where did you stop with The Boys? Like, how much did you have to cover for this review?
I did have to rewatch a lot of 4 because I kind of stopped. I loved season 1. Season 1 was fantastic. It hooked me. I ended up buying all the comics and reading all the comics before season 2 came out.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I thought it was such a genius idea and so well executed. But then it was just a progressive drop off. Season 3 had some bright spots with the Soldier Boy stuff. Season 4 fully lost me, and I checked out quite early on in season 4 and had no interest in watching it back again until the finale came out, and I was like, I'm somewhat intrigued to see how they wrap up Homelander's story, and goddamn man, it was not worth rewatching any of this for it. Christ.
Alright, so I stuck with the show like I usually do. But yeah, I also really loved season 1. I thought it was a very fresh take on superheroes. It was in a time where the MCU fatigue, superhero fatigue, was starting to set in. And they were doing all the right moves in kind of like setting themselves apart from that kind of superhero storytelling. Even in season 2, they had, like a bunch of references to how the MCU was like handling certain things, like the famous girls get it done scene. That's a play on that scene in Endgame that everyone was clowning on at the time.
Which they later do themselves, unironically, in that same season, but yeah.
Yeah, but it was always a satire, it was always a parody. My favorite thing about The Boys, outside of the larger story and the plot that they were developing, was seeing how they would remix superhero trope or a character or a kind of power and make it funny or gross in some way, viable for a TV budget like they do in this season. They do the rock monster, kind of the Thing kind of guy, and I found
the best bit of this whole season.
They do it practically.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously it's a bit more sort of detail heavy, but that's a lot of the stuff that they do in the comic books. It's exploring weird powers in sort of off the wall ways, and it's so sparingly later on in The Boys.
So I have a question for you before we go into it. Well, first of all, I liked season 1, I liked season 2 a lot. Up until season 3, I think they were on the right track because they kept introducing interesting characters, Stormfront in season 2, Soldier Boy in season 3. I think the problems really started with season 4, which should have been the final season, but they decided to drag the story for another season.
Right.
And then they ended up having 2 seasons that don't really go anywhere for a very long time. It feels dragged out and rushed all at the same time, which I didn't know it was possible to do.
Oh man, but don't you find so many of the big shows, when they're trying to wrap up, do that? You're watching the final season of a show, like Stranger Things is maybe a good reference here.
Yeah.
You're seeing the first few episodes, and Game of Thrones final season was like this.
Spinning their gears.
Yeah, you're like, how are we doing? What would you call them? Like pocket episodes? What's that word again?
Yeah, like a bottle episode.
Yeah, bottle episodes. They might do stuff like that in the final season, and you're like, oh my god, how are they gonna jam pack all this story into the last 3 episodes? And you realize they don't. they just didn't have much of a plan for it. But yeah, for me, the problems begin already in season 2.
All right.
Even though I did enjoy season 2, but I can see the problems beginning there already, and the problems prevail even more in season 3. But there are still aspects I enjoyed of the show that kept me watching, but there would be complete scenes where I'm like, oh my my God, this is so skippable.
Yeah, there's always been skippable stuff. But I have a question for you before we go into our grievances, as I mentioned. So you read the comics.
Yeah.
I haven't read the comics, and my understanding based on like videos I watched and people I talked to that have read the comics, and I don't know if this has changed with the final season, but like the show was a better interpretation of what the comic books were trying to do, because Garth Ennis, the author of The Boys, is a very anti-superhero, anti-Marvel and DC kind of comic book artist. He hates that stuff, and he did that comic book to find a way to kind of like exercise all the hate that he felt for the kind of storytelling, like the superhero storytelling, and that ended up turning The Boys, like the comic book version of The Boys, in a very juvenile, and like, I don't know if I'm saying something like, I don't know if you're going to agree or disagree. What do you think about the comic book, and does it resolve in a more satisfying and interesting way compared to what the show does?
You were absolutely right when you said the show was an improvement on the comic. And it was. Season 1 is a drastic improvement on the plot and the narrative direction of the story of The Boys. And the main sort of difference, I guess, between the comics and the show early on is that when Huey meets Butcher in the comics, almost instantly he injects him without his consent with V, and he gives him superpowers, because all the boys all have super strength and superhuman abilities, mostly just like they're very durable and very strong. And it's kind of it kind of kills the tension a bit, because they actually go around, they beat the shit out of all the superheroes. They have like the strongest compound V that only really Homelander and Soldier Boy and a few other like Stormfront are actually stronger than they are.
Okay.
So they go around and they're like bullying the superheroes most of the time to a point. And whereas obviously in The Boys, a large part of the element of season 1 is how do non-superhuman powered people take down superhuman people.
Yeah, the whole sequence with Translucent was fucking brilliant.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And that's what the whole show should have been. It's like taking down superheroes each season. You take down another one of the 7 or something like that in an interesting, unique way, and you find how practically can you take down someone with super strength or super durability or something like that. That's why season 1 worked so well, and that was the improvement I guess Eric Kripke or whoever it was made to the show.
Yeah. Probably Seth Rogen, man.
Could be. Hey, honestly, if anything, his hands on this show seem to make it worse. His cameos are fucking awful in this, man.
I mean, I thought you would like the fact that he dies horribly in this one.
You think I would, but I know he enjoyed it, so it's like, yeah, fuck you. Yeah, I mean, and then season 2, 3, and 4, it gets very politicized, and this is something Eric Kripke said himself, that after season 1, the show did become something different. He wanted to make Homelander into an analogy for Trump and Trump's America, and that was kind of Vought, and that was the parody he wanted to do, whereas that stuff was all a lot more subtle in season 1, and it was more about parodying the superhero genre and overall corporate capitalism. But then as it went on, the references became super specific, and even Kripke himself was like, yeah, Homelander is Trump, and it's like, the artists should probably leave that to the audiences to decipher a lot of the time.
I don't know, man. I don't think that's necessarily something to hold against the show that they decided to do. Satire is inherently political in a way. Vought is the big corporation like Disney or Prime that has its hands in everything, and it has hands in politics. And, you know, like, of course, if you do a storyline where there's this super powerful human being who wants total control and like people to love him, the natural next step, and I think that happens in the comics as well, you know, is, you know, taking over the White House, taking over politics as well. So, you know, I think maybe, you know, like, I agree with you, you know, they go a bit overboard with some of the references to American politics, but generally I thought the comparison between Homelander and like a Trump type person makes sense, and you know, the fact that he wants to be loved and accepted and worshipped. So I don't know, I agree with you that, you know, maybe they went too far, but I think like most of the problem is not that the parody itself is bad, it's that some of the characters are forced into like a storyline that doesn't really
Well,
work for them.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
kind of my issue. And I think a lot of people, the people who enjoyed season one, and there was many people who kept watching just for Anthony Starr and Homelander.
Billy Butcher is also a very popular character, I believe.
At the beginning, but like in season 3 and 4, he's completely he's lost it as a character. His character's assassinated for me anyway. And I spoke to a lot of people who were watching the show, and they were just watching it for, they were like, yeah, Homelander is the show now, and that's all it is.
Yeah.
But the problem is, because we know this, you know, Eric Kripke's not been shy about talking about his political stance on things. He hates Trump.
Yeah.
And when you have your character Homelander is Trump, right? So it ruins the element. Like in season 1, he's taken a bit more seriously. He's a bit more menacing. He's a bit more convincing as a villain. But because they don't want to give that credence to a Trump allegory, they make him a buffoon. He's goofy. He's ridiculous. And by season 3, 4, 5, he's lost any form of threat as a villain. Anthony Starr is carrying it with his performance. If you compare scenes from him from season 1 to season 4 or season 5, they are completely different characters. And I think it stems from that like reliance on the reference to Trump, and it changes how they can do the character and write the character, because they innately hate that what it means so much.
No, that actually is a very good point. I think up until season 3, Homelander still has that sort of vibe. Like when he enters a room, you're always scared that he might just fucking kill you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think season 3, he somewhat maintains that a little bit, but I mean, completely out the window by now.
And also, they wildly weaken him in this season because they didn't know how to solve the story.
Yeah.
And I feel like the stuff that you're talking about and the stuff that I'm talking about, they're feeding into each other to create this dissonance. Like, okay, we can't make a Trump allegory a menacing and powerful being, and also we can't have Homelander being too strong, because then how do we fucking defeat him? And we need to get this over with by the end of the season.
And that was a problem that arose in the season before that as well, because I remember there's a scene when Homelander's chasing down the boys, and Huey's like inside a ventilation system.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And like Homelander has X-ray vision. He could hear for like miles and miles, and he's like lasering the ventilation system, like, and it's just behind Huey, and it's like, oh man, you are really like working hard for the contrivances so that Homelander can't kill someone. And we know, like we spoke about it so many times with superhero shows, the writing has to be really smart to have like fight sequences between an all-powerful being pretty much and like regular ordinary people.
And the writing needs to be very smart when one of your characters is supposed to be the smartest person on earth.
Have you seen, I saw this reference somewhere, I'm not certain it's true, but Eric Kripke, or one of the writers, said themselves in an interview, we can't write the smartest person in the world because we're not that. And you're like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
Just call someone.
You can't even write a mildly intelligent person, let alone the smartest person in the world.
When they introduced Sister Sage, I was really curious, because I'm like, okay, it's a paradigm shift. Like if you have a character in the room who can see 100 moves ahead of you, how are you gonna balance that? And they don't. And they resolve it in a way that is so mind-bogglingly stupid. She's like, oh my God, I couldn't predict love. It's actually insulting how they resolve the character of Sister Sage, how she doesn't do anything for the story. Like, she's introduced, we are led to believe that she's supposed to be Homelander's kind of like right-hand woman, and she knows everything, and she's gonna, make him immortal for some reason that we're not privy to yet. And she just wants to go into a bunker and read books, and that's her motivation for doing stuff. And then, I don't know, I'm rambling, I feel, but like the whole thing, like everything, especially because this season, like this whole season is a mad rush to end the story, but also let's do a 3-4 episodes detour so that we can set up this spin-off show, which makes us no better than Disney, a company that we've made fun of endlessly for milking their franchises and setting up sequels and spin-offs and whatnot when they don't even know how to end one story.
Yeah. And this is where your quote at the beginning of the review describes The Boys so well. It's become everything it was making fun of in the beginning.
I was so mad at this because we have 3 episodes of literally dicking around. You think that the story of the final season will be they need to develop this virus and then this virus is gonna help them defeat Homelander. But then the virus is produced in the first episode, and by the end of the second episode, we realize that actually no, Soldier Boy is immune because he was one of the first superheroes, if not the first, I don't remember. And the compound V, the V1 that he has in his bloodstream, allows him to resist this virus. And so the story now becomes Homelander is gonna find the V1 to become immortal. And I thought at first that could be really cool because, oh my god, we are not just gonna resolve this with this very dangerous virus. You know, we have another problem to face. But this becomes an excuse to go on this side quest with all these characters that we don't know and we don't care about, and that there's still precious screen time from characters that we do know and we do care about that have like 5 scenes in the whole season.
Yeah, come on, guys. You're taking away time for scenes when we could have Huey and Starlight arguing about the relationship again.
Yeah, I mean, okay, they could have done something better with the characters, like the main characters, but like there's episodes where you barely see Huey, and actually we are spending time on like, what's the guy that is gonna probably be the protagonist of the Bomb site. There you go. We have like a whole subplot, 2 episodes worth of subplot on this guy. It's so meandering and pointless, and by the end of it, you didn't accomplish anything. And then Homelander gets the V1. Well, actually, Soldier Boy gets the V1, and he has hated Homelander for 3 seasons straight. He doesn't care for him one bit, is ashamed of him, but for some reason, he decides to give the V1 to him because that's what Clara would have wanted. And I saw this line referenced as the new somehow Palpatine returned line. And I agree. It's that bad.
Yeah.
It's that bad. You are bringing back a character that we haven't spoken of really for 2 seasons just to justify his actions all of a sudden, you know, like, oh, you know, I loved Clara and that's why I'm giving the V1 to you because that's what she would have wanted. But like, how do you know that?
Everything you've shown us about Soldier Boy in every single scene tells us the complete opposite of that being who he is.
How did you reach that conclusion, man? How did you get to that? And of course, Easter Sage is there to witness this, and she's like, oh my god, humans do strange and inexplicable things for love, and you know, I couldn't account for that because I'm smart, but not, you know, like I'm not emotionally smart. And I was like, fuck you.
Yeah, honestly, them trying to like wrap up this whole thing when Sister Sage joins the boys, and that was like the most telegraphed shit you could see. When they introduced Sister Sage, I was like, she's definitely gonna be like transferred to the good side at some point.
I could expect that because she clearly had ulterior motives. You know, she was playing her own game.
Yeah, but okay.
And Homelander was a pawn, and that was interesting.
Oh, I mean, no, that is not, Tommy. Don't give the writers credit for that. They try and be like, this was her plan all along to get Soldier Boy and Homelander to fight.
But like the setup, the premise, you know, like of her, like as a character, it could have been something.
Yeah.
But like the sequence of events made me so mad because it was just like such a non sequitur, just such a, okay, we need to figure out a way to progress the story and also introduce a bunch of characters that nobody's gonna care about because the show about them is not out yet and no one is gonna watch it. And they made the same mistake as fucking Stranger Things season 5 as well, by the way. But then all of this becomes even worse when we have the scene where Homelander finally gets the V1, injects it into his veins. He has like glowy eyes, he takes flight, and we have the boys observing this whole scene from the woods in the dark. And Billy Butcher is like, run, and the episode ends. And then in the next episode, everyone is home, everyone is fine. Homelander is at the headquarters doing, I don't know, PR or whatever, because he has to announce the fact that he's God now. And I was like, what happened? Like, did I miss an episode? I actually went out of the app and checked if for some reason I skipped an episode. I was like, what's going on? I was expecting a confrontation of some kind, but no, they didn't have the budget, they didn't have the time or will to craft something interesting there, so they just skipped it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I realized in that moment that the show was not.
Oh, you realized in that moment? At the last episode of season 5, you realized the show was bad.
I knew by then that the show was not as good as it used to be, but I was still holding out hope that they would find an interesting way. What I'm trying to say is you can mess up along the way because maybe you had to stretch the story for longer than you were anticipating.
Yeah.
But when you have a story like this, especially a story based on source material, you should have the endings for your characters locked in.
Well, they changed a lot from the comics, and there's a couple like big reveals of characters, which are like big twists in the comics, but they do something different here, like way earlier on, so they can't have those reveals later on. But it's I think even in season 2, you know, when the Deep is doing the Scientology subplot, never really goes anywhere with the Deep, and it's such a heavy.
A lot of stuff doesn't go anywhere with many characters,
especially with his character. Like, they want to keep him around as like the comedic punching bag. But I love the scenes when it was the Deep and A-Train vying for Homelander's approval and him shunning them away. Like, all that stuff was so great and so rich, and it's nothing to do with the actors, because I think there's not really many actors in this who give bad performances. They're all really pretty good, to be honest, with the material they work with.
Oh my god, you have Jesse Usher as A-Train. Can't remember the name of the Deep's actor.
Chance Crawford, I think.
Yeah.
Whoever plays Soldier Boy, he's really good. Carl Urban. You know, Starlight's great in season 1. Season 2, she's still pretty good, but her character
Terrible.
is terrible. And we were talking about sort of like the linchpin for both of us of when the show like completely dropped off a cliff, right? And there's a comparison to be made. And this was the point of the show that I fully just stopped watching after this episode. It was
All right.
in season 1, in the first episode.
You stopped watching after season 1 on the first episode.
This is the good bit. They obviously deal with the sort of sexual harassment that Starlight goes through with the Deep to get into the 7. And
Great stuff.
and they play that for like the whole season. The tension of that is built up with, and they explore like the relationship between the Deep and Starlight after that, and it's such a key element of season 1. In season 3 or 4, Huey gets abducted by fake Batman.
Oh yeah. Tech Knight,
yeah. And he's about to be sexually assaulted in horrific ways, and it's all played for absolute lols. It's all like, how funny is this torturous abuse that Huey's going through? And then straight after that, Starlight is giving him shit. He gets like you can't say rape on YouTube, can you?
No, graped.
Yeah, he gets graped by a shape-shifting character. Who looks like Starlight, and then he tells Starlight, and Starlight is annoyed at him, and they then have a long argument for like episodes about him being sexually assaulted, because she's like, oh, that's cheating. And it's like, oh my god, like, you would never do that with Starlight's character if the shoe was on the other foot. But Huey has become this like the writer's punch
You would
bag.
have never done it in season 1 because you were actually you cared about the storylines that you were doing.
Yeah, and it just shows you, like, you know, dealing with sexual violence between a character, how they dealt with it in season 1, how they dealt with it later on, depending on who is the victim of it. But yeah, honestly, like, Huey is just he gets done so dirty in that. And I think in an interview, Kripke came under a bit of fire for this exact comparison of sequences, and he was like, well, it's all just funny, isn't it? I was like, well, it wasn't. I actually found it to be like quite
very disturbing.
Yeah, and it made me think, oh, the writers are actually a bit sick. Like, I don't know, like you're morally, like, you're a little bit corrupt.
Yeah, they were trying to find ways to do gross out stuff from the very beginning, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. You know, like they do the whole hero-gasm thing, which they heavily marketed as the most disgusting scene.
So much better in the comics.
Yeah, it's like all the characters very slowly over time have been degraded. They feel like they're not the same characters anymore. Like, I couldn't even recognize Frenchie as like a character anymore in this last season. Kimiko starts talking, and she talks in like TikTok fucking language for some reason, even though, you know, she could speak before. It could have been such a powerful and interesting change for her to finally being able to express herself, but they decided to make a joke out of it. So the character feels completely different all of a sudden in the final season. Mother's Milk is probably the only one who was worse in the like season 3 and 4, and then he comes back a little bit more.
He comes back a literal shell of his former self. I was like, what happened to this guy? Someone left him in the washing machine too long. He's shrunk.
Yeah, in season 4, I had to check if they changed actors. I was like,
Yeah,
it looks
yeah.
really close, but I'm not convinced it's the same guy.
And I don't know, maybe just aging, or he was like maybe on steroids before, because he's a unit in the earlier seasons. Like he's a big,
Yeah,
big,
he's
muscly
huge.
dude.
Yeah.
And but then he literally just he seems like quite frail in the later seasons. I don't know whether you know about why he's called that, because they took his name from the comics, but didn't take the element of why they called him that. But in the comics. And again, they could have done this, and it's a bit more of the weird stuff. Like the comics are a lot weirder than the show for sure. Mother's Milk's mum was part of a sort of a compound V experiment, during birth, and when they send
yeah.
doctors around, and they do this in the show as well, send doctors around and they sort of inseminate compound V into them whilst they're pregnant to give birth to superpowered babies. But so he has superhuman abilities, he's super strong, but he needs to breastfeed from his mum to keep getting the nutrients to give him his super strength, even as a full adult. So he's like, a 40-year-old dude, and he has to pop over to his mum's house to go get his milk to make him strong again. And obviously they take that element, they give it to Homelander instead. But it's like it's weird that they called him Mother's Milk, and they give him
They never explain it.
I want to keep my family safe. That's it. That is all his character is. And he's like, but I can't help it. I want to kill Soldier Boy, but I've got to keep my family safe. It's so generic. You know what? Just like as an overall thing, because I'd spent so much time away from the show.
Yeah.
When I caught back up on season 5, I was like, oh my God, all the characters are in the exact same position as they were.
Oh my
Nothing
God.
progresses.
Yeah,
Nothing progresses.
I think they could have done it in 3 seasons. They could have done this story in 3 seasons, and it would have been, I'm not saying perfect, but I think it could have worked very well. Because you can feel in season 2 already, Homelander is gearing up to lose control completely. And they have that fake out scene. I don't know if you remember. I think it's in season 2 where he's doing this. He's talking to a large crowd, and he imagines himself lasering all these people and killing everyone. When I watched this, I was like, oh, this can't be real. Like, they can't be doing this already. They will have to do it at some point, because that's kind of like the point of a character like Homelander is like a bomb ready to explode. But, when they did that fake out, when, you realize actually it was just thinking about doing it was like, okay, when are you actually going to do it? And so like the expectation of Homelander, and then also the marketing for season 5, they were doing all these posters with like the scorched earth thing that they were doing for the last few seasons. I read somewhere, I don't remember, they wrote down like scorched earth, more like slightly burned carpet.
Yeah, that is it.
Because it all falls so flat. And also like I was so mad from the get-go with the show, with this final season, because they finally leak the Flight 37 video. We've been building this up for 5 seasons.
I honestly forgot. I thought they leaked this back in season 3. Like, I swear they had leaked this earlier. I could not believe that Starlight was still blackmailing him for that. I was like, what the fuck?
It's because they kept, like, this story was supposed to end. Then they decided to add a bunch of stuff, and they decided to stretch the story to 5 seasons. But even season 4, nothing of value happens in that season. Like, season 4 is probably worse than this.
Yeah, maybe.
But, like, some of the stuff that they do in this final season, because it's the final season, is more damaging to the overall kind of, like, story of the boys. Okay, so we have Homelander and Queen Maeve in season 1. This iconic scene. They are saving these people on a plane. Classic scene. Superheroes have done it this countless times. Superman is famous for it. So, of course, you would put your, like, superhero parody character in the same situation to show how he would behave. And it was such a cool scene, like they are trying to save these people, but when they realize that they can't, Homelander very quickly decides, fuck them, let them die, no one will know. Queen Maeve tries to convince him to save at least like these young girls, like at least some of them, take them out, but like, we can't, because then they're gonna tell what we did here. So it's a very chilling scene. It's one of the best scenes in season 1, and it becomes this thing that at some point, I don't remember if it's either in season 2 or season 3, I think that's what you remember, they come across the footage of this phone footage of Homelander like ditching these people.
Yeah.
And Starlight threatens Homelander to leak this video, to show this to everyone, to show who Homelander really is. And Homelander has this very chilling line where he says, I like being adored, I like people clamoring over me, like I like this, but if that can't happen anymore, I am also fine being feared. So like the idea that as soon as that video leaks and opinion on Homelander changes, he is completely fine literally killing everyone on Earth. That's supposed to be a paradigm shift for the show, and instead it's just brushed off. Oh, like it's AI or whatever. I didn't really do it, and nobody talks about that after that. Like the rest of the season is about something else entirely because they didn't know what to do with it. And you're like, why am I wasting time watching a show when you're not even like the creators themselves cannot even bother to find an interesting angle or like a way to develop a story in a coherent way? Like, what the fuck am I even doing with my time? And very frustrating, very, very bad.
Yeah, completely. It's that was one of the stronger elements of sort of intelligent writing, of how we were talking about how you manage having a character as powerful as Homelander. You have this blackmail on him, you've got this dirt on him, and deep-rootedly he wants to be adored, so he doesn't want that to get out, and that worked. But then, like I said, I remember that sequence when he's like, I don't care, release it, and then it just regresses
I'm gonna kill
straight
everyone.
back into like season 1 territory. Yeah, it was shocking to me, like, that nothing had moved on. Everyone was still having the same conversations, the same arguments, the same discussions.
Again, it's spinning its gears. But then, in the final episode, we still have so much ground to cover, even though the entire, you could have the confrontation between Starlight and the Deep. It could have happened like halfway through the season instead of the last episode.
Yeah.
And you could have given the right amount of time and space to that confrontation, because that's something that's building up since season 1 and their interaction in that season. Instead, they quickly fight, everything with the Deep I loved, because he was such a funny character and the actor is doing such a great job at being an asshole, but you also almost feel sorry for him because he's such an idiot. And they do him perfectly. I know everything with the Aquaman stuff is so funny. In the season 2 opening episode, I think they have this scene with the whale and they kill the whale,
stealing the dolphin from SeaWorld.
And he has the sexual relationship with the octopus. And then in this season they have him blamed for this oil rig breaking in the North Sea, and this fish called Jeremy uses his last breath to say, we know it was you. I found it really funny, and I was like, oh my god, so now that the sea is against the Deep, what's gonna happen? And what happens is he strangles Black Noir too, which he shouldn't be able to do, killing a character that had no purpose, that replaced a character that had a purpose but was killed off too soon. And then he dies like a bitch. They're fighting in the White House, but of course they have to go to the seaside so that Starlight can throw him into the water, even though she doesn't know that throwing him into the water would kill him.
Throws him into the place where he's the most powerful, supposedly. Yeah, that kind of dumb shit happens all the time. Like A-Train's, his family's safe haven from the Seven is a lakeside property, when he knows the person hunting him down is the Deep, who travels by water. They don't even think about this stuff.
Even A-Train, one of the best characters, he kicks off the story basically because he's responsible for Huey's girlfriend's death in the first episode, and then he has this very slow redemption arc. Then they have to spend 2 more seasons before they can actually kill him off and have him redeem himself, while he already did that because they had to spin their gear for so long for the show to finally come to a screeching halt. It's so maddening because you add all the elements there. The character was interesting, the actor was great, we liked him, and then he dies and I feel nothing. Why? Because you drag the story more than you should have. It just doesn't mean anything anymore. They are in this prison camp for an episode and a half, and they are freed.
That was so stupid.
That other mutant lady, with the bald head, that they teased for 3 seasons that she's super powerful and super dangerous. She just dies.
That element makes the world feel so small. Like when she comes back with the love sausage guy, the Russian guy with the big dick.
I know, love sausage.
They come back for the prison to work at the prison camp. It's like, well, these were the patients from Stormfront's like facility in season 2, and now you're just recycling them. It just feels like, oh, these are the extras we have today. Sorry, that's all we got.
And also they have that scene with the guy that there's someone, in the prison camp who wants to run away. He tries to climb the fence, and they could have easily have someone there shoot him, but no, they're using the girl to explode him. The first thing that I thought is like, that is such, like, it's so much harder to clean that. Like, why?
Now, this is where your show goes when you are completely snapped out of your suspension of disbelief.
Oh man. Okay, so we've been talking about this way too much. It doesn't deserve this level of scrutiny, this show, this season.
It's tough though, because it's so easy to vent about so much in this show, because and for me anyway, because I think like season 1 is a 9 out of 10. I loved it, and
Oh my God,
my
yeah.
mind was going into all these directions as the seasons were coming out. It's they could do this, they could do this, or maybe they could take this element from the comics and do this, and it was there. It was all teed up for them on a plate, and they decided to just corrupt it and just, I don't know, they just absolutely they destroyed the show. They really did.
Yeah. So we briefly talked about one of the things that happened in the final episode of the show, Blood and Bone, which is Starlight and the Deep's final confrontation that resolves with the Deep dying. Then we have Huey and Mother's Milk against All Father, which is a recently added character, which I quite liked. I thought the spin on like religion and belief through this kind of like pastor was kind of interesting. Doesn't go anywhere, of course, like anything in this show.
That's a very recurring theme.
Yeah, but I found it really almost insulting how Ashley introduces the Chekhov's ball gag at the beginning of the episode.
Chekhov's ball gag.
Oh, I found this ball gag that not even you with your powerful scream power can destroy, so that we can have kinky sex together. And she's like, oh, I love you for that, Ashley. And then, half an hour later, Mother's Milk used that to explode his head like Doctor Strange, the scene with the Inhuman.
The terrible scene, yes.
Yeah, so we have that. Huey does nothing. But what he does is gets covered in blood by All Father.
That's his thing.
That's his thing, being covered in blood or disgusting shit.
Sexually assault him or cover him in goo.
Yeah, and honestly, like, such a good character, such a great actor as well. I love Jack Quaid, better known for being a recurrent host on Red Letter Media's
his best role.
His best role as a Red Letter Media guest. Yeah, I love that guy. So, it's sad to see his character butchered, pardon the pun, in this way.
How funny, I guess, whilst we're on Jack Quaid or Huey, his ending is so, I don't know whether this is the right word, but superfluous, because he decides to own his own, like, tech shop with Annie, and they're together, and he's happy, back working at this tech store like he did in season 1. But, like, I don't know whether they remember, all he did was complain about that job to his first girlfriend. He's like, I hate this job, I hate, and they portray him as this everyman who's stuck in this like shitty 9 to 5, but his ultimate goal and dream at the end is then going back and working in that store. No, you got it completely wrong.
They love to do that full circle thing in Hollywood, man. It's like they do the full circle thing even though it doesn't make any sense, and it's actually sad for the character that he's back doing that menial job. Yeah, he owns the shop now, but
he gets offered his sort of dream job. It's like, hey, you can help sort of manage superheroes or help sort of stay away the threat of supervillains or whatever. And it's like, that's exactly what his character has kind of been leading up to, and he sort of had that job already in previous seasons. But he decides to reject that and go back to square one. Which is just nonsensical.
Yeah, very, very bad ending for Huey. But okay, so talking about endings, we have Butcher and Kimiko versus Homelander in the Oval Office. After they've been helped by Ashley, whose only purpose this season was to tell them which hallway to run in.
No, she's there to make hilarious sexual jokes all the time as well. Come on, Tommy. She's always whipping out like a butt plug and saying something hilarious, isn't she, Tommy?
I guess.
No, she's not. She's not. I couldn't believe I had to. This Ashley made me rewatch season 4 because I was like, wait, Ashley's the vice president. I must have missed a lot more than I thought I did in season 4. And I went back and I watched some of it, and I was like, no, I didn't. Oh, this is just a ridiculous leap in logic. And like Ashley's character probably summarizes how the show, like the downfall of the show. As Ashley makes her way up the corporate ladder, the show gets progressively worse, to be honest. She was great as like the bullied PA. You know, that
She was
was
so
she was
good.
brilliant.
Very hateable, but also, like you kind of understand. And also she's terrified of Homelander. She's very
Yeah, and
human.
she had that really good moment with A Train, where A Train's like kind of bullying her a bit, but I think she's still like the assistant of Vought at this point, and she's like, A Train, we covered up the murder of your girlfriend. You're a piece of shit. Don't you ever forget it. And I was like, there you go. You've sold me on Ashley's character
Yeah,
right there.
and then
Thanks.
they introduced the fact that now she has this powerful mind-reading tumor on her head, which I was like, okay, how are they gonna use that? Maybe Sister Sage can use her mind powers to kind of like get ahead of Homelander in some way, but they don't do anything interesting with that stuff. And then she just redeems herself, I guess, like she does the right thing by pointing the characters in the right direction just so that we can accept the idea that she survives all this. They did do one joke that I liked was at the very end when she's doing like her speech, and she's the president, so she's like, I'm not gonna leave, I'm gonna be here for you, like we're gonna solve this together, we're gonna usher a new era and whatnot. And then like the immediate next scene is newscaster saying that she was forced to leave office basically. So I thought that was kind of funny, but I was so mad at the show by this point that it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter what I find funny. So Butcher and Kimiko versus Homelander. Oh, Ryan is there as well, of course.
At least they don't give Kimiko too much cringy, horrendous dialogue in this last episode, because, God.
I cringed when Homelander lasered her and does nothing. Well, that same laser cut her in half multiple times throughout the show. She gets lasered and she's fine.
Another great character early on in the show. Like
Love
Kimiko was
Kimiko, yeah.
fantastic, and her and Frenchie's relationship when she was non-verbal and him like learning a language that both of them could understand was amazing. And then, come season 4, they started doing these stupid musical sequences with her and Frenchie, these musical numbers, and they were doing a will they, won't they for ages. And they, and then in this one, they finally let her talk.
It almost soured on me. Like I wasn't even happy when they finally got together. I was like, whatever.
No.
And also,
No.
by the way, sorry to keep delaying the inevitable, but quickly on Frenchie, because he dies in episode 7. That's like, the big climactic moment before the end where Frenchie dies. And at the beginning of the episode, of episode 8, they have this little moment to mourn him. And Huey is reading from this message that he left them. Of course, it's filled with sexual innuendos and gross out stuff. But I heard those words and it didn't read to me as Frenchie. Like I was like, this is not the character of Frenchie. Like, yeah, he's foul-mouthed and whatever, but like he felt like they didn't know how to write this character.
Oh man, the boys were so cool. Like the group of the boys, they were such a cool set of characters. Yeah. Also well defined.
Their purpose.
They each had very purposeful in what they were there to do, and clashed in very natural ways. And you have great dynamics between Huey and Butcher, this mentorship, but also one's teaching the other about life, and but also Huey's teaching Butcher things as well, compassion, etc. And oh man, it's such a shame.
I will say this, since I've been shitting on this season for 40 minutes, I did like is a strong word, but okay, so I did like not necessarily the fight between Homelander and Butcher, because it's a shit fight in one room. He tries to fly away 2 times. They manage to grab him and he's like, okay, I'm not gonna fly anymore, even though I can whenever I want. I'm gonna laser them, but not too strongly, because I don't want them to get hurt. And then Kimiko manages to laser him and he's not powerful anymore. He's just a regular man all of a sudden. And that one scene where he realizes that he doesn't have powers anymore, and he becomes this very, like pathetic, sniveling kind of, like he immediately goes to I'll suck your cock and whatever. And of course he's on live television, so his image is completely compromised. I liked that 1 minute sequence of him, being a little bitch.
Yeah, okay. It was for me. That was so obvious. Do you not think? I think from the moment they explained that Soldier Boy's powers took superhuman abilities away, I was like, they're not gonna kill Homelander. He'll be turned into a normal person and he'll be humiliated. It was so obvious that that's where the show was going to end.
That's what the character, I think, it's what they were leading up to anyway. Like that.
Yeah.
What I think would have worked better, because, like they want to do, I saw the panel from the comic where Butcher kills Homelander, and it's the same kind of like he uses the crowbar. And, it's a very gruesome and very cool effect as well. You can kill Homelander, but I also feel like it could have been way more interesting to keep him alive, throw him in jail. I feel like maybe it could have been like a even better ending.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. They wanted to have their cake and eat it too. Like, you've set up the idea of his worst fear just being living every day as a normal human being because he thinks he's a god. That's punishment. Like, just turning him normal, then killing him, that's not punishment.
They should have kept him alive, because, it's so much worse for him to live, the next 40 or wherever years of his life, knowing that he's just a regular man, when he spent his life thinking he was superior and spent the last few weeks thinking he was literally God. To bring him back to Earth, literally, like make him like the rest of us and make him live in that, I think would have been such a harsher punishment than, make him live that nightmare for 2 minutes and then kill him. I think that was a bad decision.
Absolutely. Look at that. In just 30 seconds, you wrote a better ending to the boys finale. And these people get paid a lot of money to do this, Tommy.
Man.
Wow.
With the things that I could do with that money, man. But yeah, so I didn't like that, as I made clear. And then we have another ending, because of course we need to resolve Butcher's character as well. So we have this scene where it looks like everything is, they're wrapping it up. It's over. Everyone's happy. The future is bright. It looks even like maybe Butcher and Ryan can build something, but then Ryan rightfully is like, I don't want to be like you. I don't want to be with you. You suck. And, he's right. And then Terror, the dog, dies. Butcher doesn't have anything to live for anymore. And so he decides, okay, I'm gonna go on a genocide run. I'm gonna go and kill everyone because I can't stop. And then Huey has to stop him. And I thought, and I don't know how close it is to the end of Butcher in the comics, but I thought this scene was fine. I thought it was a good ending for Butcher's character, that he can't bring himself to just live his life. He needs to get rid of Soups, and he is willing to do anything to get that result. So
yeah, his resolution makes a lot of sense. You can't give him a heroic death, but maybe it would have been even better if he goes out, he takes Homelander out with him or something, they die together. Because I don't know whether people remember, but in the end of season 1, Butcher tried to kill a baby, like an innocent baby as well. So he is a bad guy.
And also, like, I was so confused because I thought, they established that he was dying, that he had like a tumor inside of him, basically. And like, I don't know if the V cured him, but like he used the temp V so many times that his body was basically like he was supposed to die. And I thought like his ending would have been like as soon as he manages to kill Homelander, his body gives up because it's like I don't have anything to fight for anymore, and he dies as well, because they hint at him being on death's door so many times. And they have that scene where Jeffrey Dean Morgan comes back. By the way, I hated with a passion how they teased this character in season 4 of Jeffrey Dean Morgan. It was so obvious from scene 1 that it was in Butcher's head, and they played it like such a twist. Oh my god, it was in his head this whole time. But like, of course, because every time he speaks to him, he's by himself. That's always the case in any movie or show. When you're introducing a character and only one character talks to them, that character is in their head. It's their imagination. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Shitting on season 4 while I should be shitting on season 5.
It's so hard not to jump around because there's so much that there is that went wrong with this show throughout, you know.
Like, didn't you think that he was supposed to like die of cancer or something like that? Like, I thought that's what they were establishing.
I think there was a moment in season 4 or 5 where he gets like hit with Soldier Boy's energy blast, and it actually like it means it adapts the cancer to they live together like cohesively. They do have some stupid throwaway line that it somewhat explains.
Fuck that.
But they basically, yeah, they said that him and the parasite now coexist peacefully together or whatever. It was dumb. It was so dumb.
So bad.
And yeah, a distinct lack of interesting, like, super powered abilities throughout. That's something that the comics did way better. Interesting heroes, interesting villains with interesting powers, and, you know.
And it's not even like, because people have complained that the show feels very small. And, I understand that this is a TV budget and maybe Prime decided to give them less money for this one for some reason. It's not even that, even though, like, if your marketing shows scorched earth and there we get slightly burnt carpet, then, people are rightfully complaining. So, but you could have done something small. Doesn't even need to be much bigger than what we've got with the fight in the White House, but it needs to make sense. It needs to talk to the characters and their arcs, and I feel like so much of it was just, okay, let's get this done, let's get it over with. Everyone is fed up with this. The actors don't want to do this anymore. We're paying them way too much. We are way out of budget, way out of time, and we don't know how to resolve this story because we wrote ourselves in a corner trying to do a parody of real life. They did the South Park thing. Basically, they were like, we're parodying reality and reality is out parodying us, so how do we solve this in a satisfying way? And they didn't. They just, I don't know. It's a bad show.
No, but Vought Rising will bring it all back together, Tommy. Don't worry. You just have to watch 3 seasons of the inevitably cancelled spin-off show to understand where this story goes.
By the way, speaking of spin-offs, fucking Gen V. I don't know if you've ever seen any of it.
You couldn't pay me to watch that, man.
I watched the first season and I think I started the second one but never finished it. At the time I was pretty into The Boys still, and I was like, okay, this is fun, these new characters are fun, this university setting, and they made it sound like this was going to be so important and that the main character in that show was going to have a vital role in taking down Homelander. And then they show up for 2 scenes where Starlight is like, oh, you're not ready to help us, just stay here. And if you haven't seen the show, you don't even know who they are or why they're there. They're not introduced to you in any way. It's so, what are you doing, man? You didn't learn from Disney, the company that you made fun of for doing this exact thing for years? Like,
no. They actually do it. They probably do it worse.
They do it worse. They do it
respects,
because at least, most Marvel shows establish characters even though they've already been introduced elsewhere.
Well, like, I'm trying to... Thunderbolts is a good example, right? In Thunderbolts, we had all these sequences. These are all pre-established characters, some of them who had been in many movies, but they knew, they were like, we have to exposit who these people are just in case people haven't seen the Disney Plus slop. Whereas here, they don't even bother with that.
Man, it's so maddening because they were the people making fun of this. They were the guys that were kind of like addressing all this stuff with the writer character that they bring back in this season just to kill him off immediately. Honestly, like, I don't know what happened here because it feels cheaper. It feels smaller. The characters don't feel like themselves anymore. The ending is, I don't know. Like, again, I liked elements of the ending, but I feel like they could have done so much more with these characters. Huey disappears for like half the final season, which I think it's insulting for the character and for the actor. Yeah, just a bad show. I'm very sad right now.
Yeah, what a shame, man. What a shame. I guess I'm more apathetic to it because I was so checked out a long time ago. But it still is sad to see because even since I stopped enjoying The Boys, I've still gone back and rewatched maybe 1 and 2, like season 1 and 2, a few times over the years because it was great. It was great. So this is the perfect template on how to kill the franchise. before you have one spin-off show that got cancelled, and but don't worry, the rest shall be cancelled, I'm sure, as time goes on.
We'll see. We'll see. Honestly, I have no interest in checking out the Vought Rising, Back in the Past Soldier Boy show or any other, The Boys spin-off, because they should have nailed this ending before spending time on new characters. And clearly, this season was made worse by the need to, and this is probably not even Eric Kripke's fault, but like Prime trying to force the hand of the writers to introduce all these characters because they need to kind of like establish them for this new show that they're doing.
Yeah.
That's corporate meddling in creative stuff. That's exactly the kind of stuff that The Boys was making fun of in season 1 and 2, and they were doing it so well, and now they became the villain, like the Dark Knight used to say. I give season 5 of The Boys a 3. What about you?
Yeah. If we're just ranking season 5 in itself, then God, it's like it's a 3, or a 2. I found it not just bad, but like inherently corrupt in so many aspects.
And the more I think about it, the more I feel like it's probably one of those shows where it's literally diminishing returns. Like season 1 is the best, and season 5 is the worst.
Yeah. It is a pyramid. It's definite. I wouldn't ever recommend anybody to watch The Boys now if they hadn't seen it. Even if I love the first season so much, it's not worth the time investing into that first season for where the rest of the show goes, which is really disappointing. But hey, go read the comic book. It's much better as a cohesive story.
I will. I definitely will at some point, because I'm curious to see, how, especially, like how Black Noir character, I really loved Black Noir, and they did nothing with him in the show. Like
the reveal with him in the comics is fantastic.
I know the reveal. I'm not gonna spoil it here, but I know what happens with him. But I find it way more interesting than what they did.
Should have done that.
So yeah. Anyway, not a good show. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see your.
Oh, you fucked it. That has to stay at the edit.